I know Stitch Media through the Ultimate Reality game and transmedia community from years and years ago, which I was fairly involved with sort of early in the history of Silverstring.
I love the work that Silverstring has done in the past, and I especially love their perspective on the ways that games don't have to fall into the same tropes all the time. The project in particular was a few different conversations that Lucas and I had about the world that he was developing, this entire story world and universe that he had created, the Flowforged universe. We're brainstorming ways that we could use some of the depth of the narrative that Lucas had devised with Flowforged and pull it into a virtual reality experience, especially modeled on some of the adventure games and escape rooms that we loved.
We're very excited to explore some of the ideas and create, what we hope to be something of an introduction for a wider audience to this world that we've spent so much time on, but also to have this opportunity to see parts of this world come to life. For something that's sort of been in my head for the last 20 years, something that's very, very exciting for me to see.
Another Flow Weaver captured, as I was.
Flow Weaver?
We're not new to VR. We've been kind of watching it evolve, looking for a good place to kind of jump in and make a larger game. Putting people in this incredibly immersive environment is definitely a good place to start.
We are constantly looking at the ways that our stories are changing as new technology gives us new tools to immerse audiences, to involve audiences, and it seems quite natural for us to be pushing forward into virtual reality as the next step. To understand a language of puzzles sort of gives you a superpower. Trying to understand the secret language of what the game designers are trying to portray is what excites me about puzzle design, adventure games, all of those sorts of challenges that are really much more intellectual.
How VR really lends itself to kind of an exploratory mindset, and also just getting the player to want to kind of reach out and explore and experiment when it comes to puzzles, and kind of manipulating the space and toying with things and experimenting with things until they kind of click and you get that satisfying solution. I think that's something that VR does very well.
If you can read, you can sort of learn the lexicon, but then find a way to do complex things with a simple system.
Thinking about how a solution might be not an obvious thing, but if you think of it, oh, wait a minute, I wonder if this, works. That can result in a greater understanding of the world that you're in or the kinds of things that you do.
That seems to be back together and generating some kind of energy.
My role on Flowweaver is the lead developer. I'm in charge of all the technological decisions and designing a lot of the systems that the game uses. We're spearheading the designs on those systems with the rest of the development team.
I work as one of the developers for puzzles, some of the game logic, essentially coding the game.
I'm one of the 3 programmers on it, and I focus mostly on gameplay programming and recently progression. But a lot of what I'm responsible for is the feel of the game, a lot of the interaction systems, a lot of the spells and things like that. So a lot of what I'll do is whiteboxing out puzzles or levels, where I'll make the whole thing work just with cubes and boxes, and then the artists will come in and just sort of replace everything.
For VR, we really have to take into account how the player feels during the whole process, as opposed to more traditional gaming control methods like mobile or even console.
You're not allowed to do things that would make the player uncomfortable, and you have to always be very aware of the players, how they feel about being in your VR space.
Since it's such a new medium, there are very few sort of established standards and practices for how best to do it. There's just a lot of challenges in terms of actually making it work without as much to go off of.
I can use this finger bone as a portal key. I just need to merge it into my planar compass.
A few of the systems I worked on, one of them is Shadow Hand, which is sort of the main spell in the game, which you use to grab objects that are far away. I ended up sort of revamping the way it worked, using a lot of research and finding just fun new ways to do throwing. It was maybe my second or third time writing throwing in VR, which sounds boring, but making a throw feel realistic in VR is actually very tricky. I was very proud at where it ended up and kind of the experience I gained there.
The main thing that's a consistent across the flows is, I guess, a level of detail. We want things to look realistic. As much as a fairy forest can look realistic, we still kind of approach it from that kind of viewpoint. The first thing I'm thinking about is, how can I create something interesting for the player? How can I create this puzzle to be visually intriguing? Only once it comes to the steps of passing it on to the artist, then we really have to hash out, okay, now what is possible within, the time frame, logistics, or even capabilities of hardware.
Whoa! It's beautiful.
I try to pull aspects of a lot of the stuff that I play in terms of like just design fundamentals and like best practices for how to make an enjoyable experience. And since we're making a VR game, playing a lot of VR games has really opened my eyes to a lot of the sort of things you need to be aware of. Like VR really lets you like kind of experience and feel the worlds you're making a little bit more. Like there's like a little less of like a leap you have to make between the controller and the screen to the headset.
I'm very used to making assets and animations for things that are going to be rendered flat. You have to start thinking about everything is going to stay 3D. So it kind of adds an extra step where you have to check, like, does this model look good in 3D? Not just, does it render nicely to the screen?
I do a lot of the world building, kind of setting up how it looks. The flows that I worked on mainly was Phalanx, Skybridge, Underworld. A lot of the flows are so unique. You're just like mesmerized. Just the whole world building and just sitting in the world that you made makes it so rewarding.
The dragon in the Shadow Realm is the biggest wow moment for me in the game.
The Shadow Dragon, very much from start to finish, was just a big undertaking. But when I finally got to work on that, I was very excited. And I think it turned out pretty well. Russell and I did a lot of work to make sure that beastie did everything at the right time and had the kind of body language that Jeff was wanting and stuff like that. So it was definitely worth the wait. It was definitely worth the struggle to try to get everything coordinated and working right. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with that guy.
Oh my!
I just like the idea of transitioning to different worlds and kind of how every world is connected in some way.
That feeling of being like a stranger in another place and trying to find your way home. I kind of like that narrative of identifying with the character in the sense that you're trying to figure out why you're in there and figure out a way to get out.
The thing that makes me go holy shit the most is some of the stuff we have in the Skybridge. It definitely has this wow quality to it. Even though I knew that's exactly what we were going for when we were developing it, I knew that we had this moment like baked in from the very beginning. It's still this like, oh, whoa.
Being able to sit in these places that I've sort of imagined and helped, design and describe and stuff for so long. Every one of those moments is very, very cool.
When you can start interacting with all the objects, that's what really makes it super rewarding, because you see the world, you're a part of the world, and when you're sitting in VR and you're just looking at it, you're just like, holy crap, like I made this.